everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the mission-oriented killer. Now, mission-oriented killer basically kills because they have some type of agenda they've set for themselves. They see something plaguing society, whether it be some systemic problem or it be a group of individuals or classification of people who are causing problems for all the rest. Whatever it is, they see some type of problem that needs to be addressed. They feel like society is either overlooking the problem, they don't see the problem, they refuse to act on the problem to make the changes necessary to get rid of the problem. And so they bring it upon themselves to come up with a way to solve this issue. And killing becomes part of that process. And so they kill to create the spark that ignites the change that they really want to see happen. It's not difficult for these individuals to kill people, because they've already deemed this classification of people as someone who is unworthy to live for whatever reason. You're causing a problem on society. You are a blight to society as a whole. You don't deserve to live. I'm doing society a favor by taking you out of society. And so the moral dilemma of whether I should kill or not really doesn't come into play for a lot of mission-oriented killers, because these people aren't worth living anyway. I'm doing society a favor taking them out. These people are not psychotic. I know it can sound psychotic. They may be psychopath, but they're not psychotic in the sense that they have a break from reality. They completely understand society's not going to be happy with what they're doing. The society's going to look at what they're doing and go, that's evil, that's wrong, we can't allow that. But that's because society either doesn't recognize the problem yet, are unwilling to do what it takes to deal with the problem, or don't understand the full context of the problem. Once they're enlightened by you, the mission killer, and your actions, society will be all aboard to try to figure out how to deal with this problem. You're the spark. You're creating the spark, the ignition that's going to change society for generations for the better in your mind. And that sounds psychotic, but it's really not, because they do understand firmly that what they're doing will be considered wrong. And they're not doing it because of delusions or hallucinations or voices that they hear. They're doing it because of an internal belief system they've created for themselves that makes this type of action not just plausible, but the appropriate course of action to take. The only one to take to save society as we know it moving forward. Now, a lot of this is because they're driven strongly by their fantasies. Individuals who are mission killers will spend weeks, months, sometimes years developing their fantasy. They'll read information from people who are like-minded. They will do social media and meet people and congregate with people who are like-minded. They will insulate themselves from outside information that contradicts the beliefs that they already have. They will write manifestos detailing why what they're about to do is necessary for the good of humanity, for humanity to prosper. They'll take pictures of themselves with their guns and their rifles, with maybe racist propaganda, Nazi propaganda, whatever it is that supports whatever mission that they have. They will see themselves, as this fantasy builds, as the heroes of this story, not the villains. They know initially society is going to see them as the villains. But once society is woken up, once society realizes the true justice in what they're doing and how it's going to help humanity for generations to go, they will become, in their minds, a lot of times, the hero of this story. The person that is looked up to, the person who made the sacrifice necessary to see this social movement come to fruition. Some of these people will decide that they want to commit suicide because they want to be a martyr. They want people to remember their great sacrifice in creating this type of society or making this societal change. They don't mind as much in some cases, getting caught, because society, they feel like, may come to a point, or should come to a point, where they're viewed as the hero and they want to be able to live and be treated like a hero. Be treated like the person that saw this problem for what it was, finally made a real decision to take action and led society to a better place. Most of them will go through great lengths to make sure they don't get arrested, they don't get prosecuted for the crimes, because they want to be out there continuing to do their mission, and plus they really don't want to pay for what they're doing. So there's a lot of planning involved in this fantasy as well. They'll spend, again, years, months, whatever, determining how they're going to commit these kills, who they're going to kill, where they're going to kill, and they're going to choose victims and sites based on what's going to give them the best bang for their buck. Okay? They're going to choose people and sites that are going to put their message forward the easiest. And we're going to see that with some of the people that we're going to talk about. A really good example of that we already talked about in Module 1 when we talked about mass murder, and we talked about Dylann Roof, why he chose that African American church in South Carolina. Because he felt like the historical meaning behind that would give more gravity to the actions that he was about to take, and would hopefully, ignite that race war that he wanted to ignite. So mission-oriented killers have a reason for killing. Killing isn't just something that they just want to do. They kill to see their mission through and to get the type of change they want to see happen in motion. Their motivations are mostly intrinsic, which just means that they're within the individual. They're motivated from themselves, from within. This vision, this idea of how their decision to kill is going to shape society or make society better is very unique to the individual. Some people might see prostitution as a plague on society. Some people may see some other group or segment of individuals in our society as the cause of a certain problem in our society and need to be dealt with. Whatever their particular mission is very much intrinsic to them and that motivation based on their belief systems, their attitudes, and what they've spent their time building up to. Their anticipated gains are psychological in that they want to feel better because they've seen their mission through, but also they want the adulation that they feel like they should deserve for committing these actions when they come to light and when society makes the changes that it needs to change. You should thank me for what I did to try to make society a better place and to bring humanity forward. You shouldn't be prosecuting me. You should be thanking me. You should be rewarding me for enlightening society to these problems and showing them a path forward. There is a motivation and an anticipated gain of seeing their mission fulfilled. You spent all this time building up, researching, planning, preparing, writing your manifesto, taking everything you've done to get to this one moment where you're actually seeing this mission through. You want to see that fulfilled. You want to see the fruits of your labor. And the completion of their purpose. They want to see society move forward in the way that they feel the society should. So for Dylann Roof, and I keep coming back to him because that's the one we've talked about so far that will fit under a mission-oriented killer. Not necessarily, he wasn't a serial killer, but a mission-oriented killer. You want to see your purpose come to fruition. You want to see that race war come about. You want to see society make the changes necessary to benefit it and make it a better place from your worldview. Again, this isn't how I see it. This is how he saw it as a mission-oriented killer. Method of operations, they usually kill really quickly. It's very act-focused. It's not process-focused. When we talk about act-focused versus process-focused, remember we're talking about, it's more focused on the act of just getting you dead, getting you out of the way, and moving on to my next target, as compared to I want to mutilate you and terrify you and do these other things as part of the process of killing you. And so what you see is usually a fairly quick kill, a fairly clean kill, because they just want to get these people out of the way, move on with their life, and get the get the mission moving forward. Detailed planning again, and their crime scenes can be either disorganized or organized based on the unique characteristics of the offender. Now, one of the earliest forms of classification we had, which came from the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI, is organized versus disorganized crime scene. So let me talk a little bit about that, what that is before we go forward. An organized crime scene means that someone took the time and the care to plan out their kill, to figure out how to eliminate evidence, to process it in a way they feel like they have a better chance of getting away with the crime, maybe to fulfill some type of fantasies, whatever. It's a very organized crime scene. Disorganized basically means it's a big mess, like we were talking about with the psychotic killers. We're talking about the visionary killers. A disorganized crime scene, there's really no attempt to hide your tracks, or very little. Evidence is just laying there. They probably used whatever was available to kill, when they came there. Mission-oriented killers usually fall within that organized type. I would say 85% of the time you're going to get an organized killer when you're talking about a mission-oriented killer, because they're so detail-oriented in their planning. And they'll bring a lot of times the weapon that they chose to use. They'll take steps not to get caught. But sometimes you do have a disorganized crime scene. And those cases may be things where they're trying to see their mission through, but they're not really interested in getting away with it. So they don't mind getting caught. They don't mind being the martyr, that kind of thing. Maybe they plan on committing suicide anyway. You may see some disorganized crime scenes that way. But for the most part, you're going to see organized crime scene. It really depends on the makeup and what their goals are with going through with this killing. Now, our first mission-oriented killer that we're going to talk about is a man named Manny Pedro. This was actually a police officer around the Miami area in Florida. And he was a police officer for a while, and he saw in his community just how destructive and harmful drugs were. How it was just devastating his community. Kids were getting hooked on drugs. It was ruining people's lives. You had dope dealers just dealing this stuff almost in plain view. Just not, it was just out there, and it was destroying our communities. It's something we can all relate to. I mean, we all see how drugs have affected our own neighborhoods. And I'm sure that no matter where I go in the U.S., there's some stories about how devastating drugs have been. While as a police officer, he also had the opportunity to see, as they made arrests, as they investigated and they did their work and they sent them to court, it was a revolving door. People were making plea deals. People were getting lesser sentences because this guy was ratting on this guy or whatever. And these same guys were on the street. And the ones that weren't back on the street, their positions were filled in a couple days, if that. I mean, there was people waiting immediately to step in and sell those drugs. And so the situation, no matter how much they tried, wasn't getting better. Well, Manny decided to take it upon himself to make sure that his streets got cleaned up. And how he did that was he just started shooting drug dealers. He wound up killing drug dealers. Actually killed 9 people in the 80s, all because he felt they were drug dealers. They were negatively impacting our community. They were causes of destruction. What society was doing to deal with the drug problem wasn't working. No matter how many people they arrested, no matter how hard they worked, no matter what they did in the court system, people were still selling drugs on the street. Something had to be done. Maybe if they felt like that it would be a death sentence to sell drugs, maybe they'd quit selling drugs. And so he took it upon himself to be that. He said he killed them all because they were all drug dealers. They had no right to live. These were people who made their living as a parasite on the community, destroying the lives of children who they were making addicts. And then bringing them and then getting them, coming back as they're addicted and just destroying generations. These people had no right to live, according to Manny. And so he saw himself as a soldier. He saw himself as someone who was really trying to make a difference and make their community better. Of course, he was convicted. He was a murderer. But this shows just how a mission-oriented killer thinks. All right, I'm a police officer. I've seen firsthand that what we're doing isn't working, and for a lot of reasons, but it's not working. These people, as soon as we put them in prison, there's somebody there to fill their shoes and continue selling those drugs. A lot of them wind back out on the street anyway, and they just pick up where they left off without really, there being much change. So what are we doing here as a society? We're just spinning our wheels, and at the time we're spinning our wheels, more and more kids are getting addicted to this stuff, and more families are being destroyed by the drug problem in our community. Now, I can either stand by and just keep doing what I'm doing, knowing that it's destined to fail, or I can try something new, and I can say, you know what? If you're going to sell drugs on this street, on this corner, in this community, then you're going to die for that. And maybe that'll have an impact. And maybe that'll change. Because these people, they have no right to life. They have no right to be a part or be amongst the rest of us. They're just parasites who are making a living off the destruction of everybody else in their community. Now, that's not how I felt, but that's what's going on in the mind of Manny. And we can see how that thought process, if not checked, could lead to some pretty devastating circumstances. I mean, many of us, like I said, can relate to a feeling of almost helplessness of trying to deal with the drug problems in our community. It seems like, no matter what we do as a society, no matter what we try, we still have a significant problem with drug abuse in our communities. But most of us wouldn't take that extra step to say, all right, let's just start offing all the drug dealers. We wouldn't see that as a just course of action. Manny understood that, although he did think that society should basically thank him, but he understood that society would see what he was doing was wrong, and he basically just asked that they, kill him instead of giving him life in prison because he was a soldier and deserved to be treated as a soldier. So their patterns is they have an ideal victim type, but not like you're going to see when we talk about lust or thrill or power control oriented serial killers. Their ideal victim type is whoever is in the group that I deem unworthy to be a part of society or is plaguing society. So if you're a part of that classification of individuals, then you're a member of my ideal victim type as a mission-oriented killer. After all, these people are undesirable. They have no right to life anyway because their existence is making the rest of our existence more difficult. Their methods are very act-focused. We already talked about that. They're not worried about a process where they're going to torture you or anything like that. They just want to get you out of the way. You're not even worth their time. You're so undesirable, so beneath the rest of us that you're not even worth the time to be process focused. I just want to get you out of the way and basically throw you away with garbage. Again, not my arguments, but the arguments of a mission-oriented. I'm trying to get you to understand the thought process of a mission-oriented killer. They do a lot of planning and they're very organized. Again, you might get that small percentage that are disorganized for specific reasons. And there's a reason why they have disorganized crime scenes when they do. But for the most part, your vast majority of cases, you're going to get an organized crime scene. And they tend to be geographically stable, but for a different reason than we've seen with the visionary killer. Remember we talked about the visionary killer? They tend to be very geographically stable because their disability makes them not feel comfortable leaving their comfort zone. Whether that be around where they live, around their parents' house, around a park, around whatever it is. Their disability keeps them from feeling comfortable going far outside those bounds. With a mission-oriented killer, it's different. Mission-oriented killers typically are pretty successful individuals. They're smart. They're articulate. They will write a 300-page manifesto that, while you may not agree with the context to it, are understandable, are articulate, really explain their perception and their points of view really well. And so they tend to be very organized people in their own life. They tend to be very successful in their own right. And so they can't just take off and drive to another state to commit a murder that easy, because they have work and responsibilities at home. And so what you'll see a lot of times is these individuals are geographically stable under the necessity of keeping their jobs and keeping their lives going and all that. Miara Simmons is another serial killer I wanted to get to that would fit under this mission-oriented tag. He actually killed in Louisville, Kentucky area. And this individual believed that prostitution was a plague on society. Prostitutes were evil. Prostitutes were spreading disease and killing people. I mean, think about all the diseases that are spread through sexual actions. AIDS and all the different diseases that go along with that. And he felt like that, prostitutes were just disgusting, subhuman individuals that make a living basically killing humanity by spreading these diseases. They destroy families. People cheat on their spouses with prostitutes, and it's just a horrible, horrible lifestyle that lives off the backs as parasites to the rest of humanity. He wound up killing in the Louisville area. He actually killed 3 women. He had a test that he developed to see if a woman was truly a prostitute, because, he wanted to be fair. It was prostitutes that were causing the problems to society, not women in general, not even women who may be dressed inappropriately or whatever. He wanted to make sure these were prostitutes he was killing. And so what he would do was he would take the gun, hold it to their head, and force them to have sex with him. Now, if the woman said, and this happened on a couple occasions, the woman says, no, I would rather you kill me than have sex with you, then that's proof that this woman isn't a prostitute. He actually would get up and let that person go. But if you didn't, if you had sex with him at gunpoint to your head, he said you were a prostitute and you were going to die. Basically, his idea was that prostitutes are evil, they're immoral, they're destroying fabric of families in our communities, they're spreading disease, they are a plague on society. And nothing else seems to be getting rid of the problem of prostitution. It's been around humanity for a long time. And he's going to deal with it by just shooting them and getting rid of them that way. Final thoughts. These people, again, are pretty successful, probably have jobs, probably have lives of their own. You're probably looking for someone in the community who may be well respected, is doing pretty well financially, probably. A person who is very organized, who thinks things through. They usually have the same kill and dump site for the reason that, a lot of times the most dangerous point for a serial killer being captured is when they're dumping the body. So these individuals will often just leave the person where they're killed. Plus, whoever they're killing is somebody that doesn't deserve to live anyway. So why bother, trying to move the body or anything like that? Just leave them to die in their own whatever. They'll plan out their kills immaculately, as well as the crime scene. So they're very well planned out. And what you'll see is this mountain of evidence will often come once the killer has been identified, because you'll be able to see a lot of times the manifesto that they've written, or the articles that they've written for themselves, or the chats they had, or the social media, or the pictures that they've taken, the preparation they've taken to get to this step. This wasn't something that one day they just said, hey, I'm going to go kill some people to put forward this mission. They have built this up in their mind. They have fantasized. They have reinforced this idea over time. And there's going to be evidence of that effect. With that, I want to thank you for enjoying this video. Next week, we're going to come back and talk about hedonistic serial killers. See you then.